So in the 2013 rule, HUD says they clarified talking about the eligibility of students. And so they added some language to to 92.2, which is the definitions section, about low-income households and very low-income households, where they kind of cross-reference the requirements of 24 CFR 5.612, which is about housing choice vouchers and the eligibility of students. The short approach to this is that traditional college-age students, 18 to 23, under 24, are deemed to be ineligible. And what's really going on is that the assumption is that those students are not independent households, right? That they are a dependent member, of their parents' household. They may live physically in a different spot because they're going to school out of state or out of town, but that they are conceptually and for tax purposes usually a dependent of that household. So that's the starting point. There are exceptions then built into that. And the first exception is if they are in fact an independent household. So if it's a youth that's aged out of foster care, right, nobody can claim them as a dependent. They are not a dependent member of another household, right? If they're an orphan, those sorts of things. So somebody who is in fact legally an independent household, even though they're between 18 and 23 and they're a student, we could still rent to if they're income qualified. And then there are further exceptions for folks who are veterans, who have a dependent child, or who are married. So back to your question about you're working with a group that's working with students but that were formerly homeless. Many of those may in fact be youth that have aged out of foster care, or maybe people, some of them may be emancipated minors or were emancipated minors. So if they're legally their own independent household and not eligible to be claimed as someone else's dependent, then you can look at them on their own merits. Okay? But if it's somebody who otherwise, mom and dad are still eligible to claim them as a dependent, they're just living in a different town, then they're really a part of that broader household, even though they're geographically separate. And so they're not able to be treated on their own, and we say, hey, all they're doing is working at Burger King, so they're low income. We would have to look at the entirety of the household, and in most cases, then they're not eligible. Okay? So, the underlying premise, which in this day and age may or may not be true as the world continues to change and household, what we think about as family and this, that, and the other thing, but the underlying premise that Congress had when they kind of put this into the statute about housing choice vouchers, but where HUD adopted it across many of its other programs, was that traditional college student is sort of only temporarily poor, right? The traditional college student, 18 to 23, is still a member of mom and dad's household, and is, to the degree that they're low income, it's sort of this transitory state, not a permanent state, is kind of the premise of it. But then the exceptions, again, are there.